Next, I think, well, let's pass it if you feel like you're oriented enough. Are you ready to go? Amy Walter, we introduced you, I think in absentia we introduced you, but to remind everyone, she's the editor-in-chief of Hotline and has been a longtime commentator on politics and calling early congressional races, all kinds of things with great foresight and precision. And we just was hoping you could take 10 minutes of your own reflections on this historic election and along the themes we're talking about. And Amy.
Well, Joe set me up.
Oh, you turned on?
Thank you very much. Glad to be here. And Joe set me up quite well because this is reminding me, this election, and I've written about this a lot, this idea about, as we all know, politics is all about timing, and whether or not we are seeing fundamental shifts in the way, as Joe pointed out, campaigns are going to be run, how they're going to be covered, how candidates have to continue to look forward in the next few years, or are we seeing simply a unique moment in history where all the forces came together at once. Now, whether or not we go to Joe's point about this was a mistake in the way that Hillary Clinton has run her campaign versus Barack Obama, let's start off with this. He had no choice but to run the campaign the way he did. Her decision to run the campaign she did, I think she had very little choice either. We can argue about whether she could have run as a change candidate. Yes, I think by the mere fact that she was a woman gave her an ability to talk about change that somebody who's already been in the White House, who's seen as part of the establishment, wouldn't have been able to get to. If this were Bill Clinton's nephew, wouldn't have had the same ability to be a change candidate. And at the same time, there was no reason earlier to believe that campaigns were going to be run that differently than they had in the past, nor were they able to tap into that in the way that Barack Obama could. In 2006, I remember having this debate that entire cycle about whether what we were seeing that year was because the environment was so strong, right, that it was pushing Democrats ahead on so many levels, that could the Republican, basically the roadmap and the strategy that they had used successfully year after year after year, which is, the sort of outwit, outlast, outplay, but usually it's outspend, that you can spend your way basically out of any bad political environment. And that because these contests, these districts had gotten so balkanized that there was no longer a sense of a national campaign where House races and Senate races sort of flowed with what was ever happening at the top of the ticket, that they were in each individual, there could be 50 or 60 separate races that didn't necessarily connect to the big national environment. What I came to discover, though, was that ultimately the environment wins. All right, Mother Nature won out in 2006, and clearly I think this election is showing the same thing. Everything that we're seeing, whether it's President Bush's approval ratings, the historic lows in terms of approval ratings of Congress, direction, the very low optimism that voters have about the direction of the country, the voter ID, that party ID where for the first time since 1991, Democrats have a 20-point advantage. I mean, well, let's say this. Nobody's had a double-digit advantage, Republicans or Democrats, since they started asking the question about whether you consider yourself to be a Democrat or Republican. And after the 2006 election, we saw Democrats open up a 20-point gap. So running campaigns the way that they were run in 2000 and 2004, the let's turn out our base and hope that we at least split independents, that's no longer the way that these campaigns are going to be run. My one caveat to all of this is the way Obama's running his primary does not necessarily indicate that it's the way he can win the general election. And so when I look at what has happened, especially in the last two elections, so let's look at what happened in Virginia and Wisconsin. The attacks on McCain right now are that, he has a problem with his base, he has a problem among conservatives, Rush Limbaugh hates him, Laura Ingraham hates him, whoever it is, and he is going to have real trouble getting that base to come and turn out and vote for him in November. And for as well as he may do among independents, is that going to make up for the loss among conservatives? I haven't seen anything, and maybe I'm missing something, but I haven't seen anything in any polling, at least to this point, that suggests that, one, Republicans don't like John McCain. He still has incredibly strong approval ratings. They don't change from liberal to moderate to conservative, that voters are choosing self-identified conservatives or evangelicals are choosing Huckabee because they hate John McCain. Maybe it's just that they simply like Huckabee more and they have an opportunity to vote for him. But what I think is more problematic when you look at where McCain fell short in Wisconsin and Virginia was among independents. He didn't win independents in Virginia, and he only took 47% of the independent vote in Wisconsin, even while carrying Republicans by a significant margin. Why? Because Obama is appealing to those independents. He is taking that sort of moderate independent vote that we all have assumed that McCain has an easy access to, and has stolen that in the primary. And Obama, as we all know, is winning those by 30, 40 points, those independents. This is why, and we go back to Joe's point, that Hillary Clinton then running a traditional Democratic primary campaign isn't going to work on independents. One, because they already have a perception of Hillary Clinton that has been rooted. That's not very good. Her disapproval ratings among Democrats are quite low. Among independents, as we know, they're bad, right? Her disapproval ratings among independents are probably upside down, 48%, maybe close to 50%. So we don't know whether Hillary's attacks on Obama aren't working because they're not effective, or because as a messenger to those independent voters, she's just inherently flawed. So of course they're tuning her out. I don't know if they're going to say the same thing about McCain. Again, he's not the same candidate that she is in appealing to independent voters. He starts off with a better reservoir of goodwill than she did, or does. And the more that Obama, if you watch him campaign after campaign, day after day on the campaign trail, what I saw last night and what we're going to talk about a lot in Ohio and Texas is his ability to sort of get in with that lunch bucket Democratic crowd. But he's doing so in some ways by moving further and further to the left on some of the very issues that John McCain and Republicans are going to bring up later. The tax and spend liberal. He's the most liberal senator in the entire United States Senate. Going back to Joe's point, the question is, and to wrap it up, is whether that's sort of the old school attack too, right? If what we're assuming is this is a whole new campaign, you can't go back to the old bromides that we all always had, Democrats attacking Republicans on Social Security, Republicans attacking Democrats on taxes. And when you look across the board at how strongly Democrats start this election, even on issues like taxes and the deficit, it may not work as well this time, that if McCain is going to undermine Obama, he has to be more creative than the same old tax and spend, in the same way that Democrats in the 90s started to lose the efficacy of the, Republicans are horrible on Social Security, they're going to make your grandmother eat cat food, they're awful. And at some point, seniors and others just tuned it out. But I do think that making these leaps of these assumptions here that Obama's success in the primary automatically translates to an advantage in the general, I think is one that should be looked at much more closely. So I'll leave it there.